This video is the first in a series of pseudocode revision videos, and we're looking here at declaring and initializing variables. So right at the beginning, for every program we need to consider what variables are needed, and we need to declare and initialize those variables at the start of our program. So just as a reminder, declaration or declaring, what that means is giving a name to the variable and deciding the appropriate data type for the data that will be stored inside that variable. Initialization is giving a variable its value for the first time. So this happens at the start of a program, where assignment is a general term for giving or updating a value to a variable. This can happen throughout the program. What is a variable? If you remember, I always say picture it as a storage box, because it's a form of temporary storage that holds the values that can be changed. And the rules for variables are, when we're creating a variable or the name of that storage, the name cannot contain spaces, must not start with a number, and must have a meaningful name. So let's look at this task. We have a cinema program. Okay, so we're looking at this task here, and it needs to store, this program will store the customer's full name, email address, number of tickets booked, total price, and paid. I think what this means is, have they actually paid or not? Okay, so now let's look at this. So we'll go down here. So the first thing we should be doing, I'm just going to scroll up a little bit. Okay, we'll just keep those rules there. So for every program in pseudocode, the first thing we do is we write declare in capital letters, okay? This is a command. This is saying that we are creating a variable, and then followed by the name. So I'm going to call this variable full name, okay? Now I'm going to put a colon, not a semicolon, a colon, and after the colon, what I need to do is I need to specify the data type. A name will be characters, just letters through A to Z, and so that will be a string, and we put a string in capital letters. I like to remind students from the get-go that any kind of action or command word in pseudocode will be in capital letters. So now moving down the line, we are going to declare the next variable, and this is email address. Okay, I think email is meaningful enough. Again, this would be a string. Why? Because a string can contain letters, numbers, and symbols, including the @ sign. So that's two variables declared. I'm now moving to my third, which is number of tickets booked. I'm just going to shorten that to tickets booked, remembering that we can't have any spaces, so I've used the underscore. And then tickets booked. Have I booked 2 tickets, 1 ticket, 5 tickets? That's a number, and therefore the data type is integer. Okay. Literally, I'm doing a few of them to show you different data types, and also to highlight you do this for every variable that you need to use in your program. So the next one is total price. So I'm going to put total. And this is going to be not an integer. Yes, it is numbers, but actually currency is in decimal. And so for decimal values, the data type is real. I'm going to declare again for the last time, and this is declaring the variable called paid. And this is going to be a Boolean. Why? Because this is a yes or no data type. We are either going to be inputting yes, they've paid, or no, they haven't. So now what you see here is 5 declared variables in pseudocode. The next task, okay, is to assign, or initialize rather, so giving these variables a value at the start of the program. Now in theory, I'm going to ask my customer, the program is going to ask for them to input their name or the member of staff on the system. So at this stage, we don't really know some of the values, and this is how we initialize. So full name, okay, and just with an arrow, this is how we do an arrow on the computer. So this is our assignment arrow. So full name is assigned the value empty string. Okay, this is what this means. It means empty string. I could assign a value as Carla, but then this value is fixed at this stage and I just want it to be empty. So because I'm going to give, the program is going to be input by somebody else, so I have an empty string. Okay, then for the email address, exactly the same thing. Assignment arrow, assigning it the value, empty string. And then we're going to tickets booked. This is also, so this is, oh, sorry, this is actually now looking at this data type. It's an integer. Okay, so as it's an integer, we would initialize this variable to hold the value of 0. Okay, so at the start of the program, we're not sure how many tickets we're going to book. No speech marks. Why? Because it's a whole number. Only strings have speech marks. So then we have the total. Okay, and again, we don't know the total yet, so we're just setting up our program but it's a real, so we will set it to 0, but show that we understand real. Data type is a decimal value. And the last one is paid. Okay, and our assignment arrow, and paid, it can either be true or false with the Boolean. So paid at this stage is false because we haven't had any bookings to accept any money at this stage. And this is how you declare. So this is declaring our variables, so naming them and stating the data type, and then assigning a value. Okay, I'm just going to actually capitalize my F, as I'm just being a bit OCD with my consistency of my variable names. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so now following on from the example, I'd like you to look at this scenario, an online shopping program that stores this data. Okay, 4 bits of data. There is examples of how the data will be captured, or the format, should I say, and your task is to declare suitable variables with correct data types. So that's a suitable meaningful name and an appropriate data type for each of the variables needed, and you are to initialize those variables with example starting values. I want you to pause the video, have a go at the task, and then come back to the video and press play and see if your answer matches mine. Off you go. Okay, so rather than type it out, here is my initial answer. Okay, so I have declared all 4 variables, you can see here, with suitable, meaningful names. Your names don't need to be exactly the same, but they need to be very clear. It needs to be very obvious what is being held by that variable, and then a relevant data type. Okay, so string for product ID and product name, real for price, because that's a currency and we'll be holding that in a decimal format, and in stock as an integer, as this is how many, items of the product do you have in stock. And then here what I have done is I have initialized the starting values as basically 0. I've kind of assumed that my program is going to be input by a user and I don't know what that data is. However, if you did if you're given a task where you're given the data, what you could do is then you would put the data inside. Okay, I'm just going to put this as £5, depending on your currency. If that was Naira, maybe it would be a bit more, and I'm going to say I've got 100 in there. Okay, so 2 ways to initialize your starting values with pseudocode, either as empty, awaiting user input, or actually assigning and giving your variable a physical value at this time. And that's it. Well done.